pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of The Cinematic Traveler. I am your intrepid movie exploring host Chris, and on this episode I will be bringing you my review for yet another horror movie to hit movie theaters. We're getting them left and right now, ladies and gentlemen. This one is entitled Until Dawn, and it is directed by David F. Sandberg. And you know I do love to talk about horror movies, so this is going to be a fun episode. I can't wait to talk to you about it. I hope you're doing well out there, my beloved listener or viewer, whatever the case may be. I hope you can forgive me. I don't know if I'll sound 100% on this episode because here in the mediocre state of South Carolina, it is the most wonderful time of the year. That is spring allergy season. Yes, there is pollen in the air. And much like healthy relationships, I am extremely allergic to pollen, so I'm doing my best to battle it. But hopefully everything sounds great for you because, God, it's a horror movie. I love them. I love them. I love them. I had two choices this week. I could have done Accountant 2 or Until Dawn. Obviously, I picked Until Dawn because, well, two reasons. One, it's a horror movie. The other one is I think The Accountant 2 was well over 2 hours, and this is an hour and 40 minutes. So for most of my faithful listeners, viewers, you know how much I love a movie that comes in under 2 hours. So I can't wait to dive in. Let's talk about Until Dawn.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
Now, before we start, I do have to over-explain a couple of things. I am going to be bringing you a spoiler-free review, as well as a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden a movie quote from another movie that shares some DNA with this one, or maybe runs parallel to it. And if you can identify that movie and get in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I have an email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. Or if you're on YouTube, you can just answer in the comments. But either way, get in touch with me with the answer. I give you a point for each one you get right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points, and whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. Oh, how exciting. How exciting is that? You get to be in charge of the show. Plus, you get to let me know you're out there as I sit behind my wall of blankets here. I know it seems a little uncool, but come on, play along. That's the best time of the week, and that is to be uncool with Chris. So with Until Dawn, again, directed by David F. Sandberg, who has directed a few movies I've seen. I remember the horror movie Lights Out, as well as the underrated prequel to the Annabelle series, Annabelle Creation. That one took me by surprise. I actually enjoyed that movie very much. And then he took a little venture into the comic book realm where he did both of the Shazam movies. First one was rather fun. The second one was pretty generic. I guess he did not enjoy the experience, so now he is back making horror movies. Now, we open the movie with a young lady, Melanie, desperately trying to escape a mysterious killer. We then jump ahead 1 year as Melanie's sister Clover and 4 of her friends are retracing Mel's steps to hopefully find her. They stop at a gas station where Mel was last seen, and Clover asks the mysterious owner, played by Peter Stormare, who proceeds to tell her many people have gone missing in this area. He warns them all something like, "Don't take this lightly, boy. It wasn't all by your numbers." The fool nearly derailed the invocation with his insolence. The ancient ones see everything, and they will not be... I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I? Hint, hint. And apparently our heroes have never seen a horror movie, or even an episode of Scooby-Doo for that matter, and decide to ignore the red flags and continue their search. They eventually arrive at a strange visitor center that is unoccupied and has this weird hourglass clock on the wall. When the hourglass turns over and the sands begin to run out, our young protagonists come face to face with a psychotic masked killer as opposed to a mentally stable masked killer, and they meet their untimely demise, or so they think. As in a Groundhog type day plot device, they all wake up, still trapped in the visitor center and having to face unspeakable horrors until they can solve the mystery of this cursed place. Will our heroes be able to survive until dawn? Or will this cabin in the woods swallow their souls? Well, I will not answer those questions and spoil the movie for you, but I will give you the best review for Until Dawn on all of the podcast YouTube universe, nay, in all of the universe. Now, to be honest, as I always am with you, this was based on a video game that I have never played. Yes, I know, I'm a horrible nerd. I just don't have time for them anymore. Oh, every time I play, it just eats up so much time. I'm like, no, I got too much else to do, including making this podcast or YouTube video, whatever the hell this is. But I haven't played that game, so I guess I'm not going to be able to compare it to that, which is a good thing because you want a movie review, not a comparison. So I guess we'll do this review with a bit of an asterisk because if you have played the game, I don't know how much difference there is in the game and what happens on the movie, so you might hate this just because they made changes. I don't know. So I can only come at this as a horror movie fan. As I mentioned, David F. Sandberg has done some pretty decent horror movies. Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised by Annabelle Creation. That one was a bit creepy. There's that one scene where the doll kind of grows in height in the hallway or something. That was a pretty creepy scene. But even his Shazam movies I kind of enjoyed. But it was nice to see him kind of stepping back into horror movies. I know this is a realm that he loves. So let's talk about the positives of Until Dawn.
Sounds pleasant.
And we'll start with the horror element of this movie that for the most part I enjoyed. Really, first maybe 2/3, or at least when the horror starts to hit, it was kind of fun. There's some good gory kills in here. You got a nice mix of practical effects with some CGI. There's a pretty brutal scene with a stick that gets stuck through someone's eye, and the residue on the stick was pretty nasty. I had a good laugh at that. Fortunately, I was in an empty movie theater, so I could really let my maniacal side out and laugh at all of the gore and the horrible kills that otherwise I have to sort of damper my laughter so I don't get pulled out of the movie theater by security. But I had a good time. There's a bit with the water in this little area that they're trapped in that has a really fun payoff. Although I will say at the end it gets a little overused. But at any rate, I think some of the kills, some of that horror action was pretty good. I was surprised at how gory it was. I thought it was going to be a little tepid, but they went full on blood and guts and nastiness. So kudos, David, for giving me some gore. If only we could get more of that in horror movies. And boobs. I don't know why we don't get boobs in horror movies anymore. I miss that, damn it. And I know that sounds horrible, but I'm a lonely, lonely man behind a fort of blankets. I need to see some boobs soon. I would say for most of the movie, I really did enjoy the kills and the carnage in the film. I do like that it takes sort of different approaches to them every night. Like the first night, like I mentioned in the synopsis, they have to deal with basically a Jason type killer. And then you think, okay, that's what we're going to get for the rest of the movie. But then they introduce other elements. There's supernatural elements. There's like a zombie creature elements. There's some other big giant creature roaming around out there that they never really touch on. But, there's different elements to each night to make it a little more challenging for our heroes. Also, with each passing night, it seems the area that they are trapped in kind of expands to give you more things for them to explore. There's like a house or a barn or something that they go into as water tower. And then eventually it grows out into what used to be this city. So it doesn't just stay confined into that one little house at the beginning of the movie. They sort of venture out and try to have to solve everything and the mystery and who's doing what and why they're here and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I do like that. Also, every night, like when they do die and they wake up, they sort of have residual effects from how they died. Like the one young lady, I don't want to spoil things, but she takes a lot of damage to her face. How about that? And then when she wakes up the next day, she's kind of got bruises on her face. So I thought that was a pretty cool twist on the whole Groundhog Day thing, that you still have some effects from the night before. So yeah, again, there were some cool little twists here and there at the beginning of the movie, and I was digging it. I think the direction, as I mentioned, was good. I think it moves along breakneck pace. Bless you, an hour and 40 something minutes. I never really got bored with it because it sort of does your setup, your typical horror movie. You get the opening scene to let you know what's going on, or at least build the mystery of that there's this horrible thing out there. You get the setup with the characters, and then boom, they're at the house, and then every night's repeating itself, and they're trying to figure out what to do. So, by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, great. That was an hour and a half or so. I feel pretty good. There's some good atmosphere from this house and even as they expand out into when it broadens out into this little city and stuff, you get a lot of shadows and the fog, and things are hiding in the corner and you don't know if they're there or not. They pop out at you. There's a couple good jump scares, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of jump scares, but there were a few that caught me, and I was like, all right, all right, David, I see you working there. That's nice. So yeah, I think altogether the movie, as far as just from a technical side, it looks good. As I mentioned, there's a good mix of practical and CGI effects, which I appreciate, as well as just breezing through this plot. It didn't waste a whole lot of my time. I guess my final positive is Peter Stormare. I think that's how you say his last name. I mean, he's legendary at playing these weird, creepy European characters, and he does a great job here. He's, of all of the cast, I will say he is the one that stands out the most. And that's because he is a professional and he knows what he's doing in that role. So it was good to see him on the screen. So, having wrapped up our positives, let's go ahead and move into the negatives of Until Dawn.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And since I applauded one of the cast members, let's start there. The rest of the cast, as many of my regular listeners will know, I usually tell you who the actors are playing these roles in the plot synopsis. I just didn't even waste my time on this one. I don't know who any of them are. None of them made any kind of impact on me. I wasn't interested in them as their performances are basically standard generic horror movie characters. I don't think any of them are particularly likable, so I didn't really care whether they lived or died. Didn't get invested with their quest to find Mel or Melanie. And, some of that is the actor. I can't lay too much. Some of that's the script. I mean, these characters, like I said, they're just bland, generic characters. It killed me when I was watching this movie. It's set in present day, right? And yet there's a group of 5 people, and not one of them has ever seen a horror. None of them make even a reference to a horror movie. They do reference Groundhog Day, but not any other horror movies out there. I mean, come on. Chances are that in your friend group or whatever group you hang out with, there is one person that knows movies, at least knows movies, and has a little knowledge of horror movies. Probably somebody knows a lot about horror movies. And that person, since you're watching or listening to this, is probably you. So if you were in that situation, you would put things together rather quickly and be able to at least come up with a plan or some kind of strategy to figure out what's going on. And nobody in this movie has ever seen a horror movie, like I said, or even Scooby-Doo at this point. So for most of the nights that they're doing this, they're just dumb characters making dumb horror movie mistakes. And then they have this one thing that a character does, and I don't know, maybe it was to not make any sound or anything, but she's in the dark with a flashlight and hiding from, I think, one of the zombie creatures. And instead of just turning off the flashlight, she puts her hand over top of it, so you could still see some light. I don't know. It just looked stupid to me. I'm just sitting there going, turn off the damn flashlight. But maybe I'm just being too picky right there. I just kind of got tired of the dumbness of the characters. I wish that they would have been a little more creative with the every night something different comes out. At first, you kind of get that because, as I mentioned, they start with the mass killer and then they do this like supernatural possession kind of thing, which was really cool. It was creepy looking, and the one character gets all possessed. I was enjoying that. They got this weird room with all these masks in it. That's always creepy. There's some references to like The Changeling. If you all saw that with George C. Scott from, what was that, 1980, where the rocking chair rocks by itself. They have that, and then they have like a clown doll. That was a pretty good bit because the character just grabs a clown doll and kicks it out of the room. He's like, just stay the fuck away from me. So I thought that was pretty funny. But other than that, you know, those 2 nights, you don't really get anything else after that. It just sort of rinses and repeats the same thing. And then again, you have these dumb characters who aren't making any progress with dealing with this threat. You know what I mean? Eventually you would come up with a plan about, okay, if we get the mass killer this night, we got to do this, this, and that. If we get the supernatural this way, we got to do that. So maybe if they'd have had different ones all the way throughout, that would have been a little more. I mean, you could have played it up with all the horror movie tropes. There was one thing, as I was watching it, I got excited about because I do love werewolves, but there was like this werewolf sketch on a table, and I thought, oh, we're gonna get somebody's turning into a werewolf. Yeah, hell yeah, I love a werewolf. That would bump this movie up in my review quickly. But nothing ever really happens with it. So the rest of the movie, I kept waiting for a werewolf, and I was like, oh, damn, the movie's gonna end. I'm so disappointed. But yeah, I wish they would have done a little more creativity with the different scenarios every night. Also, I think you get some muddiness with the rules that we're following here. And I did mention something I liked with them having sort of effects from getting hurt or killed the night before. It's still there. Well, that starts at the beginning, and then they just abandon that idea. It just goes away. I thought, man, that would be a great idea to follow all the way through. You keep getting damaged, and you know, maybe you got a limp this time and you can't run as fast, or you know, your arm, you can't move it or something, you know, something to add a little more to these characters where they have to think more, or you're worried for them more. You know, the threat's more dangerous now because they got one eye they can't see out of, or something like that. Also, there's this book that it's like a guest registry that they all sign, and you can flip back to the book and you can see everybody's signature, and I think it was 13 times. So that would be, they were like, okay, everybody made it to 13, but after that, you never saw a signature again. So that feels like it should have made things a little more urgent. I mean, there's a point where they're all like, what day is it? I don't know. I think I would pay very close attention to that book every time I woke up to see what day I'm on. And then when you get the reveal of why they're there, it kind of just doesn't make much sense. And what's the purpose of all of this? Maybe the game explains it better, because this one, it just didn't. And again, I don't want to spoil anything by telling you the mystery behind it all, but yeah, it was kind of a letdown. The end really is a letdown. When it gets there, it's kind of like, oh, this is what it is. Oh, okay, it's kind of dumb. And then there is a character's death that it's really lame. They kind of call back to another type of death, and it's just set up so dumb. I was like, come on. You had me all the way till this point. I was enjoying the movie, and then you just didn't stick the landing. And another, I don't know. I'm not going to call this a negative, just an observation, because, you know, the movie makers, they didn't have any choice in when the movie came out, but to come out the week after Sinners, when you go from that movie to this movie, then yeah, some of the smaller things probably stick out more. So that sort of wraps up my basic negatives for this movie. I'll give you a gore score. This is the only thing I give a number rating to, which goes from 1 to 5, 1 being no gore, hardly any gore, and 5 being like Terrifier 3 levels. I'm going to put this one maybe about a 3.5. Like I said, I was surprised at how gory this movie was, pleasantly. There were many times I was laughing in this movie at things I probably shouldn't have, which says a lot about me. But yeah, I do appreciate a good gory flick. And again, maybe some boobs. Oh, Lord, I'm a horrible, horrible, repressed man. I need help. One of you ladies out there has to find me attractive. If you could just put up with me long enough so I can see your boobs, that's all. Oh, God. Where am I going with this show right now? Let's wrap this thing up. Overall, my thoughts on Until Dawn, whether you should see it or not, this is a tough one. This movie walks the line. I will say I was enjoying most of it. I think the end really lets it down. You do have your typical horror movie characters, which kind of sucks. And I wish it would have been more creative with the different horrors for each night. That would have been more fun. Maybe have some characters who know about horror movies, or one that knows about a horror movie, so they can kind of wink at the audience and have some fun. If it would have injected a little more and not take itself so seriously, I think it would have been a definite recommend. I know, I hear you. Should I see this in movie theaters? I mean, it's a good time. It's not going to offend you. It's not awful. I've mentioned this on other episodes back when I was young, way back when movies cost a wooden nickel and you had to walk uphill covered in snow to get to the movie theaters. You could watch a movie like this and not really give a damn. You know, you were like, oh, that was fun, and forget about it. That's kind of what this movie is. I know now prices are a bit different, so I would probably recommend just waiting to see this on a streaming service, which it'll be out in. Because, Lord, every time I turn on and go through my streaming, all the ones I have, all my streaming services, I'm like, God, that movie was just out. I just saw that at a movie theater like 3 weeks ago. So this will probably be out there pretty quick. So yeah, just wait for this to come out in the streaming atmosphere. Which, judging by the empty movie theater, I think a lot of you will. Apparently, all of you went to see either Sinners again, which good for you. And if you didn't hear my review, go back and check that out. Or you went and saw, oh my God, Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. That movie made a hell of a lot of money. I am impressed. All you prequel fans, I applaud you. And I will say, I talked to someone about this recently, and I've said it before. They do all of these reboots and these crappy remakes and all that. And I always just think, you've got the original movie that everybody loves. That's your movie. It's already made its money. You could kick like a couple million to advertise it and re-release it for a couple of weeks. You could make a good bit of change from that. But right now, these studios are not listening to me. But as we gain in popularity, they will have to bend their knee to the Cinematic Traveler. So that wraps up our Until Dawn discussion. If you're still here, then I must have done something right. And if I did, if you could please follow or subscribe to the show, it's really easy. There is a button somewhere on the device that you are watching or listening to the show on. Just tap it. Just tap that little button and follow the show so you won't miss any of my future episodes. And you can go back and listen to my previous amazing reviews. Hear my sexy, sexy voice. And on some of them, you get to see my sexy, sexy face. You can also get in touch with me. As I mentioned, Instagram is the best way to do it, at Cinematic Traveler Pod. Or I have my email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com, or in the comment section on YouTube or on whatever podcast you are. You leave a comment on there, get in touch with me, talk with me, let me know you're out there. Let me know how I'm doing on the show. I did change some things on this episode. Hopefully they will work out a little better for us. We'll see. Now, I will be back next week to review. We're going back into Marvel territory with Thunderbolts. Although it does have Florence Pugh in it, who I do like her as an actress, and it'll be fun to watch her. So we'll see if maybe Marvel can put out a decent movie. It's been a while since they've done one. Also, I might, well, you know what? I'm not going to make any commitments. I'm not going to make any commitments to you. So if I don't come through, you won't get upset with me. But there's a chance you might get a little bit more out of this podcast this week. We'll see how froggy I'm feeling this week. So before I go, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen or watch my show. I greatly appreciate you as an audience member. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast YouTuber universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. How do you do it every week? You amaze me. You amaze me because, God damn, you bring the sexiness into this world. Don't ever stop. Now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball bouncing through the cosmos, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.